The time my dad let me drive and keep a secret that changed everything. When I was about 12 years old, I walked into my dad's office one day and found him counting a pile of cash. He looked at me, smiled, and said, "Don't tell Mom, and you'll find out what this is for." Intrigued, I nodded and kept my mouth shut. 2 days later, he woke me up early in the morning, saying we had errands to run. By the time we got back home, we had a new car. Well, not brand new, but new to us. My dad grinned and said, "If you don't tell your mom how much I spent on it, I'll let you drive it." It turned out he only paid a couple of $100s for the car, and since we were broke at the time, my mom would have been furious. I swore to keep his secret. My mom, of course, was determined to find out the details. She asked me countless times, but I stayed loyal to my dad. Because I kept quiet, he'd let me drive the car whenever we were in an open space like an empty parking lot or an old field. Imagine being in middle school and already knowing how to drive. I felt like the coolest kid ever. When I turned 16 and got my learner's permit, I was ecstatic. I started asking my mom if I could drive her around whenever she needed to go somewhere. Her answer was always the same: "Absolutely not. You have no experience." I couldn't argue with her because I didn't want to get my dad in trouble. This back and forth went on for weeks until one day my dad overheard our conversation. He walked into the room, looked at me, and gave me a knowing nod. Then, turning to my mom, he said, "He's a better driver than you anyway." Before I could process what was happening, he tossed me the keys and confessed everything to my mom. I was over the moon. "I can drive! I can drive!" I cheered. My dad just smiled and said, "If you can keep a secret for that long, you can keep the car too." It was one of the best moments of my life. Not just because I got to drive, but because of the bond and trust I shared with my dad. And yes, to this day, my mom still rolls her eyes whenever this story comes up.